Berth occupancy is the ratio of time the berth is occupied by a vessel to the total time available in that period. When preparing a tanker's schedule for communicating with internal and external stakeholders, each phase of the tanker's interaction with the terminal has to be considered. The total of the different phases of the transfer operation is called the time taken to bring in the tanker, do the transfer, turn the tanker around, and get it out of the terminal. The terminal has to organize activities and resources to maximize its efficiency. The berth is available when all of the mooring, berthing, transfer, and safety equipment is fully functional. Pratik is the permission granted to a ship to have dealings with a port, given after quarantine or on showing a clean bill of health. This meeting is usually held on board the ship. It can be held alongside the berth, or at an anchorage. The terminal is responsible for communicating with internal and external stakeholders to avoid delays. Customs, immigration, and port health officers are advised, and arrangements made for access. Similar arrangements are made for departure. Pilotage is the service whereby a local mariner, with the assistance of tugs, maneuver a ship through local waters. This usually starts a few miles before the entrance of the navigation channel. The terminal is responsible for communicating with internal and external stakeholders to avoid delays. Pilots and tugs are advised, and arrangements made for access. Similar arrangements are made for departure. Mooring is the process of connecting the ship to the berth with ropes. This service is done by a team who go handle the ship's ropes onto the mooring hooks. There is someone in the role of dockmaster, who assists with the positioning of the tankers and terminal's vapor lines. The availability and performance of terminal equipment, like the capstans, depends on the terminal's maintenance system. The terminal is responsible for communicating with internal and external stakeholders to avoid delays. The mooring gang and the dockmaster are advised, and arrangements made for access. Similar arrangements are made for departure. Transfer arms and other connections have to be made at the ship-shore interface. Connections, like the emergency shutdown, are usually done by technicians. The terminal is responsible for communicating with internal and external stakeholders to avoid delays. Technicians are advised, and arrangements made for access. Similar arrangements are made for departure. Transfer arms for liquefied gas transfer have to be cooled. The availability and performance of terminal equipment, like the line cooling system, depends on the terminal's maintenance system. The terminal is responsible for communicating with internal and external stakeholders to avoid delays. Technicians are advised, and arrangements made for access. The transfer can be a load, or a discharge from the ship's perspective. When the ship loads, the terminal uses its transfer pumps, and when the ship discharges, the terminal just receives product. The availability and performance of terminal equipment, like transfer pumps, depends on the terminal's maintenance system. The terminal is responsible for communicating with internal and external stakeholders to avoid delays. Technicians are advised, and arrangements made for access. Transfer arms and other connections have to be disconnected on completion of transfer. Disconnections are usually done by technicians. The terminal is responsible for communicating with internal and external stakeholders to avoid delays. Technicians are advised, and arrangements made for access. Sampling protocols vary depending on whether it is a load or a discharge, and the product. The laboratory service that acts on behalf of the terminal should have up-to-date certification, and not be the cause of any delays. The cargo survey is the careful measurement of the cargo. There will be a cargo surveyor acting on behalf of the shipper and the terminal. Tankers mooring at the terminal should have its main engine ready to leave the berth in an emergency. Before starting the main engine, checks and procedures have to be done. If the ship was given permission to do engine maintenance alongside the berth, all components that have been overhauled are to be checked and wherever possible, function tested. All equipment, tools, and rags used during overhaul are to be removed from the engine. In all cases, the fuel oil, air, lubricating oil, cooling water and steering systems have to be checked. Many ships' engines are started with compressed air. Modern tankers can keep their engines slowly turning while alongside. This reduces the time needed for engine pre-lubrication,